And hello, my students. We are on our second video of China. Last time we talked about the Sui and Tang Dynasty, and today we'll be talking about the Song Dynasty and the Mongols. So there's a lot of history and innovations to discuss, so let us begin. Okay, so we have the Song Dynasty. As you can see, it's down here in the red here. And as they have a lot of China, and a lot of great things are going to happen there. So we have Taisu. Um, Now, he took control of China in 960 CE and founded the Song Dynasty. Now, China, before the Song Dynasty, they used currency, as you can see here. And this was usually of copper. Metals could also be brass or iron. And they specifically had holes in them. And the reasons for that is they would would put strings through them in transportation, and merchants would have large strings of 1,000 coins or something on them. And these were called wen, and in English it kind of translates to cash. So what we call cash is their version of wen. And before this happened, early Chinese merchants changed from a system of bartering, and then they started using money. So first they started to barter, and then they started using some kind of a currency, a coinage. In in 1024, the Song Dynasty introduced paper currency to China. So this is going to be a new invention, and it's going to be an invention that's really going to change the economic um, home front of the world. So paper money was used by merchants as early as 8th century. Money was made using specially graved metal printing plates, and then China developed this world's first economy based on paper money. So here's what some of the money looked like. So they would actually have a metal plate that had this engraving, and then they would create paper money using the metal plate engraving. And so the Song Dynasty is going to switch from currency of coinage to paper money, similar to what we have today in America. During the Tang and the Song Dynasty, roads and waterways were improved. This helped businesses and communication. Roads stretched all parts of China. Rest houses were built for government runners and horsemen. So they're very organized. They got plenty of roads going on and plenty of ways to use transportation for each other and to get things around. And as you even as you can see, for example, 9,600 runners were used to deliver fresh seafood from the Pacific Ocean to the Tang capital of Chang'an, a distance of 800 miles. And so they had a very unique system of roads, and they had a very unique system of transportation where they'd actually have runners who would run each day from one point to another point, and then they would pass off what they had, the package, to another runner, and they would run for a certain amount of time until it got to the destination, and that way nobody had to do too much running, but it was all shared between them. And on the agricultural front, as you can see the green in this area, so around 1000 CE, a new fast growing rice was brought from Cambodia to China. This new rice could be double cropped. And double cropped means it could grow twice a year instead of once a year. So now they're doubling their agricultural production because they're using this special rice that was originated in Cambodia, and they've now implemented it into their agricultural system. Song Dynasty inventions, the four greatest inventions were the compass. You have gunpowder, paper making, printing. The earliest record use of compass navigation in China was in 1117. Gunpowder was used extensively by the Chinese for military purposes during the 1200s, and of course, gunpowder was used in arrows, crossbows, and primitive bombs called packages. Now, we have here Bei Sheng. Now, he came up with the idea of movable types, and this was developed in 1045 CE. Now, he made Chinese characters in clay, and then he'd fire the clay in a kiln until it was hard. He placed characters into an iron frame, and that was what that was now the new form of printing. It was much faster. It was easier than woodblock printing. Movable types allowed books to be printed faster. The first printing of China's classics occurred. The wealthy Chinese began to have private libraries. So it wasn't just now for governments and for emperors, but now even the wealthy could afford to have their own library of the classics or of documents and Confucius's letters, etc. The Chinese invented the first bicycle using a chain to connect the pedals to the wheel in 976. So a lot of great things coming out of China at this time. Now the Mongolian conquest. So the Mongolian conquest, well, I guess we'll just talk about it. So you've probably heard of a man. His name is. You'll hear it both ways. It's either Genghis Khan or Genghis Khan. I've heard both ways, and they're just fine to me. So I'm going to use Genghis Khan for the rest here. So the Mongolians conquered most of the known world from northern China to eastern Europe. They were led by Genghis Khan. Khan means ruler and Mongol. And the Mongols were excellent horsemen and fierce in battle, and these were some pretty tough soldiers. Genghis Khan was succeeded by Kublai Khan, and 4 years later, Kublai Khan conquered northern China. In 1267, he moved his capital to Beijing. Now, Kublai Khan started the Yuan Dynasty. He made himself emperor. Not too much of a shock. Usually that's how it works, right? He placed Mongols and non Chinese in the government. So now Chinese aren't really even working in their own government. So that's not making them too happy. Mongol became the official language for law and court and documents. Kublai Khan defeated the Song Dynasty in 1279. After that, the Mongols controlled all of China. So under the Yuan Dynasty, he's a uniter. This one. So the Song Dynasty, as I showed you, they just had southern part of China. But Yuan came in and he conquered all of China. So he did what the Song Dynasty could not. When Kublai Khan died, his emperor was divided into four khanates, one for each of his sons. So you have the Great Khanate here, and you have this one, you have the third, you have the fourth up here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Remember, the Mongolians, they didn't just conquer China, they conquered from China all the way to Eastern Europe. So it was a massive empire that they had. They didn't have it for too long because it's just too hard to have control of such large proportions of land and to still stay united. I mean, the chances of people uprising and fighting against you and eventually winning are just so strong. And you have to maintain the economy, gotta maintain law and order. I mean, it's just such a huge feat. And the Romans tried to do it, and they did it probably the longest and the best for more than any other nation empire in the world. But it's just too hard. So it gets broken up into four quadrants, and whenever that happens, if you remember from Rome, it's just on the brink of destruction altogether. So during this time, we have disease and famine. Millions of Chinese died due to the warfare and to new diseases such as the bubonic plague. very brutal plague that hit Eastern Europe. It is estimated that 40% of the Chinese population died under the Yuan Dynasty. 40% of Chinese died under Yuan Dynasty, so this wasn't a very good time for them at all. Increased trade, the Mongols brought relationships from European and Arab traders, and the Mongolians they like trading with other people and reaching out and allowing connections to occur. Now, later in the Ming Dynasty, they're not going to want to do that. They're going to want to be more isolated, which kind of worked to their disadvantage. But that's the next empire. China became known to the Western world. Chinese silk and ceramics were sought after by Western merchants. The port cities, and I've already talked to you here, and I'll show you. So we have port cities here and here became so super famous and so popular they became very powerful cities uh, as well. Now Marco Polo was a Venetian trader together with his father Niccolo and his uncle Maffeo. Polo was one of the first Europeans to travel the Silk Road to China. Polo arrives in Beijing, as you can see in that picture. Polo meets Kublai Khan. When Polo arrived in Beijing, he was allowed to see Kublai Khan. And the Great Khan employed Polo for 17 years. So he was in the employment of Kublai Khan for 17 years, and and it didn't mean he like worked for him per se, but he asked him to explore areas, and he did that for him. Marco Polo wrote a book about his journey titled Il Million, which means the million. It is also called The Travels of Marco Polo. And that ends it for today. So we have a lot of exciting things going on. Make sure you go ahead and get your one-page summary typed out, upload it to the forum, and bring it to class this Monday. And until then, we'll talk soon. Thank you much. Bye bye.